Revival is in the air. We're hearing about it all the time, whether it's on a college campus or wherever it is. But listen, one thing we don't hear a lot about is revivals that are happening around the world in other nations. And you know, it's just like God to maybe break out in places that we wouldn't expect, like Africa, so to speak. But we've talked before about Isaiah 58. I'm telling you, God's heart is for the poor, the hungry, those that struggle. And Isaiah 58 gives us 16 promises that God promises to us if we do care for the poor. Well, today we're going to talk about major moves of God that are happening in Africa, specifically Kenya. God is on the move. I'm glad you've joined us today. I'm Sondra HeartStone, and this is the Sondra HeartStone Show. And today we're going to get it going and talk about the glory of God. We'll be right back. Check out HeartStone Network, a place where you'll find feature documentaries, testimonials, and great teachings by many of your favorites. It's a place that we hope will encourage you in your walk with Christ. While there, check out this series we have with Mario Murillo called I Am Not Ashamed. It's a great look into his past and how Jesus has brought him to be the man that he is today. Check us out, heartstonenetwork.com. Welcome back to the Sondra HeartStone Show. We are going to talk about the glory of God today. And listen, I've got two live wires with us today. One is Amy Taylor. She is the founder director of Awaken My Nations. And of course, is our friend that you've met many times, Darla Ryden. She is with the Texas Apostolic Prayer Network. Now, Amy is about to go back to Kenya where she ministers to have what we call a youth fire camp. And Darla's on today because Darla is going with her. And Darla, I'm guessing you're going to try to start some fires over there too.
I am so excited. I just met my new friend and I can't wait for you to get to know her too.
Well, all right. Well, Amy, tell us a little bit about you and about Awaken My Nations.
Yeah. So Awaken My Nations, it was birthed out of the cry of God's heart to awaken his people and for revival. He gave me a dream one night that said, awaken my, he emphasized the my nations. And so at that point, I was given the mandate to go into the nations, release the glory, uproot the religious spirit, and release the kingdom of God into those atmospheres.
Okay, so that sounds really cool. But
yep.
if I was watching you, what does that look like?
What does that look like? So we go in and we create it looks like a few things. We create some apostolic hubs. And so it's a place where we can equip, we can train leaders. We train them to challenge the demonic powers that are established in those areas. The Lord said to get apostolically rid in those places. And so I go in every few months, actually probably about every 8 weeks, I go into to Kenya myself. And just continue to keep my foot on the gas pedal because he said revival is now. And so when he speaks, we have to move and we have to partner with the Holy Spirit. So we partner with him in many ways. We have Chosen for Life International, which is also a rescue center for exploited children. And so that we can actually be on the ground level, raising up those, the orphans and the ones that are on the streets and raise them up into their true identity. And we also do camps, revivals, and crusades for youth, for leaders, for pastors.
Wow. So this is like full-time, heavy duty. You're over there a lot.
It is full-time. Yes. Yes. I love the country of Kenya.
I'll tell you what, when you land in Africa, that's it. You're gone. I told Darla, be warned, you go to Africa, there's something about Africa that gets into your heart, and that's it.
It's true.
Am I right?
True.
Everybody that goes, you're like, I don't know about Africa. And you go and sucked in, baby. I hope you're ready, Darla. Darla, why are you going? Why are you going?
Okay, so here's what's cool was I did pray a prayer way back when my kids were little and asked the Lord if I could go to Africa. And what he said back to me was, once you go to Africa, you'll never want to come back. And so he did.
See?
So
It's
that's
true.
exactly, I'm serious. I told that to Amy when I was talking to her. I said, that's what he told me. And here you are 20, 25 years later. And all of a sudden I get a call from Joanne Hood, which we had on the show, Joanne and Greg Hood, the Gospel of the Kingdom, and they are going to help with the hub, the apostolic hub that Amy is producing, to be the ones to bring in the kingdom message, which we've been talking about, which is incredible. So she calls me out of the blue on the phone, and I think it has to do with KU and some other things that we're doing.
Right.
And
KU
out of
is Kingdom University that Greg Hood has.
right, that I'm a part of, and a second year student. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she goes, "Hey, Darla, would you like to go to Africa with me?" And I'm like, what? And I said, well, I can pray about it. And within, a couple minutes, I said, well, when are we looking at this? And she goes, with less than a month. And I was like, okay. And so God said, this is what you want to do. And this is what's neat is the way God's working, and what Amy is saying as well is Joanne, probably 2 months prior to that, or actually it was November. So it would have been, this was March. So this would have been in November when we were having our first year graduation from KU. She had had a dream, and she called me up on the phone and told me that she had had this dream that she and I were on this beach, but there was rocks along the beach, and we were holding hands, jumping from rock to rock, just happy, like what my personality is. Ding, ding, ding. Her personality is kind of ding, ding, ding. Amy is ding, ding, ding. And the other gal, Latoya, is ding, ding, ding too. So it's exciting in that sense. And she said we were jumping along on these rocks, these pebble, rocks, bing, bing, bing. And all of a sudden we were in a village. And God, we did what we were supposed to do in the village, turned back around, grabbed hands, and we're back on the rocks. And she goes, I don't know, but I just know. And knowing Joanne's heart, I'll stop after this, but knowing Joanne's heart has always been for the nations. And so this is kind of an answer where KU has been focused mainly in the United States for a season, the last 3 or 4 years. It's like that door is opening up again to go back into the nations. And this happens to be Kenya with Amy is one of the areas that this is being released in. So I'm kind of going because I'm going to jump on rocks and head into a village. So how's that?
So what is all this going to mean when you guys get to Kenya? What does this mean?
So what this means when we get to Kenya is that he's continuing to increase the fire there. That is what's happening, because when we go into this region, every year that we've done this, the numbers have increased. The salvations have.
And every year you've done what specifically?
Well, every year that we come in and we hold the youth crusades, the revivals, the citywide crusades, there's an increase of his glory and an increased, there's an increased resistance and an increased ease at the same time. When we go into this area, we do citywide marches where we march around the areas where it's just drug-ridden areas. Areas where the Muslims have taken over. And so the Lord has pointed out the strongholds in these areas for us to uproot and release the glory into that place. And so this year it's strategic because, a lot of years we have been plowing and plowing and plowing, and you get to a point to where you look up and you say, we need to bring more people on board because there's an apostolic strength that needs to come in a greater way. It was about 2 years ago, guys, that 2 angels appeared to me in the night. And these angels, they came and I was in Kenya in this dream, and they touched my stomach, and they just rubbed like you would a pregnant belly. And they said, can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it? And you could feel the baby move. You could feel it was about to give birth. And I could feel almost like an anticipation and a pain at the same time. And there was such a seriousness in that moment. And then those very strong angels looked at me, the most powerful voices, and they said, revival is now in Kenya.
Wow.
And they can only report what is from the throne room of heaven.
Well, wait, when was this dream?
This was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, it's not that God has it's not a timestamp as far as, okay, this means tomorrow. But this tells us what we're ushering in. We're ushering in a move of God that is ready and ripe right now, which is why I go in so often and keep my foot on the gas pedal. So we have to partner with him in this time. And we want the world to know, we want everyone to know and anticipate what God is doing in Kenya right now. Even
Well,
this
what
year,
is he doing? What is he doing right now?
he's awakening the people.
Well, what does that look like?
What does that look like? So I believe awakening is when we see the churches waking up and the pastors coming together, willing to shake off the religious behaviors, the protocol. Usually they're very stuck in denominationalism and they're very territorial. Even when I go in, it's not often that they want to share, someone who comes in, they just want that person for themselves to be a part of that ministry. But we've been coming in for years, developing relationship with the pastors so that we can break out of denominationalism and come together as a city in order to awaken the church, but then revive the people. Because that's what revival is. It's where we're reviving the city, reviving the hearts of the people. And that will lead us into reformation, reforming the city, the culture, so that we can have a permanent transformation take place there.
Okay, so tell me what part witchcraft is playing in keeping things from happening.
Well, there's a lot of different ways there. What I usually encounter when I go, we call them masqueraders, witch doctors, whatever you want to call them, sorcerers. But usually when I have the meetings and the crusades there, they show up strategically at the same time. Now, one of the reasons why we also go in, usually August and a couple of other months, we're very strategic with our timing, is that we also want to come in when they're doing their rituals, they're doing their acts to bewitch the people. And so we come in as the opposite force and the opposite power during those times. So what they do is they go around the city. And even when we're there, they try and bewitch the people. I have video. They come with their goat skin, their ashes, their whistles. You can hear the whistles, but you can feel them come even before they show up. It's like a pressure you feel against your body. And so they come, and it's like the Pied Piper. Okay, do you remember the Pied Piper? And you have all the people beginning to follow them. So as they come through doing their things, they are bewitching, and more, especially the youth, start following them and running after them and chasing them. And so when this happens, they come past our crusade, and they're just trying to disrupt, disturb, bewitch the people and make sure that they stop whatever we're doing. But let me tell you what happens. During those moments, what has happened is many of the people that have been chasing and running after them, with throwing machetes everywhere, what happens is a lot of those boys actually come to our crusade. They leave that line, they come to the crusade. Many of them have thrown themselves into the baptismal. I usually have a baptismal outside there, which is very foreign to Kenya. They don't baptize at crusades, but we do. We say that we're doing all of this right now. And so they'll throw themselves in. Demons are just coming out. They're flailing in there. This happens time after time because, we've brought the glory in, and it has to uproot what's in there. It has to be displaced. And this is how we do it. I'm a firm believer in ushering in the glory into those places. And we can talk about how that happens at a different time if you want.
Well, can you,
Darla, what are you going to do? Are you going to be running the baptismal there, Darla?
Well, she said we would, so I know, and I've had probably 3 or 4 confirmations of I'm going to glean a new understanding of the glory, for one thing, an authority that I just know for the assignments that God has given me. I need this, and he's taking me out And, somebody go, well, why can't he just do it there? He could, but he doesn't want to. He needs to take me out, take me to Kenya, put this authority in and bring it back for here. Because again, with TXAPN and my thrust is over and over the prophetic words that have been spoken over Houston is that Houston is the nations. We have more nations represented than any other city in America now. We bypass New York, and God said through Chuck Pierce that Houston, if you're focusing on what God is desiring for you to do, only relating to the city instead of for your nation and for the call that's on this nation, which is to take the gospel to the nations, we will not receive the fullness. And there is something that I'm beginning to understand about listening to those prophets that have come from out of America, not within us, because they have a perspective of the world, the overall picture of the world that we don't. And America has always been in first place. First position. Right. So we're not ones to ever really think that possibly we're not flowing in all that needs to be flowing here. And so I feel like the Lord is definitely taking me to understand some spiritual battles. Amy, I'd really like for you to tell her about what they do with the boys, a little bit about that part, and then about also the bringing forth of the cat, or whatever you call that particular stuff, if you want to share. Because what Amy's trying to, when we talked and she shared a little bit about the strongholds there, I'm not worried about the battle that's about to happen. I know that God's wanting to teach us something that I can come back and bring it about how we break through spiritually in a new way. And there's something about African nations, because they've always operated in the spirit realm in a way that we haven't. And you know it, just
they're more open than America.
They're open. Yeah. I mean, it's just part of culture.
And the supernatural doesn't freak them out, and they don't have a hard time believing it.
No.
Because they're not religious, they're spiritual.
Right. Well, and they are, like she's saying, they are religious in some of their ways, but their religion is not based on intellectualism. It's based on rules and regulations. That's different, where we always try to make everything about the mind. And God's saying it's not. If God said in his prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And they have a perspective of heaven that we don't, because they operate in the spirit realm, where we always, to me, America looks at things from what they can see with their eyes instead of what is eternal.
It's a Greek way of thinking.
Exactly. The Western side. So touch on that, Amy. I think it's very interesting.
Well, and I'll add too that, Kenyans and maybe even Africans as a whole, they're very strong in the word. I mean, that's the strength that they have, very strong in the word. But what we're coming in to do is say, how do we actually walk in your identity? How do you own it? How do you abide? These are the things that are more foreign to them. But as far as the spirit realm, you're right. They know that it exists. It's more real to them, but also I will add this, it's very hard for them to discern in the supernatural, what is divination and what is not. And so we also come in to really teach them that, because suspicion is at such a high level. And so we have to be able to say, this is how you know if it's a true prophetic word. This is how you can separate hype from this. This is how you detect a false prophet. Otherwise, there's a lot of confusion and they remain in deception.
Ooh, and that's good.
So these are some things that we go in to teach them and to equip them. But as far as the other stuff you were talking about, I'll say the circumcision, that it's just an example that we use. It's just one of many of, every country, they have their own cultures. And there we have the country, we also have the tribes. And within these tribes, many of them do a circumcision act in 8th grade for the boys. And they've tried to take a more Christian form of it in recent years, but the tribal way still tends to dominate the region, which is where those masqueraders and witch doctors come into play. That is why they have the young boys following them, and they take them to a remote place, and they do these I would say like blood sacrifices and these blood covenants that end up, the boys come out bewitched by the end of it. And I believe this is one of the main things that is cyclically happening, that is creating a stronghold for the youth coming up and for the youth generationally, because they're doing this ritual and this act, which we know what blood covenants do, and it's dropping on the land, it's connecting with the land, and everything in the generational lines,
Wow.
in the tribes, it's like it carries a voice.
Yes.
And so these boys are becoming bewitched, which is killing the generations. Poverty, disease, I mean, you can name probably anything that is holding them, it's holding them captive in this area. So we can't just come in and be like, oh, stop doing circumcisions. We have to actually just say, here is kingdom culture. Here is how you abide. Here is how you know how to have a relationship. And out of that, we will begin to see the transformation.
Yes.
This is why we're targeting the youth. It's these things that we have to break the cycles and bring a renewing of the mind and bring truth. And we will have them for 4 days to ourselves. I mean, that's time to save, fill them with the Holy Spirit, let them have encounters that will stick with them the rest of their lives. So
that's good.
Yeah. And this is an area where they also have the drug cat, is what they call it, or Marah. And this area, they export this drug into other countries from this county. This is the county. So the way the Lord brought us to this county was actually through a dream. I wouldn't have known where to go to Kenya, but here the Lord directs us to that county and even shows me the pastor to work with. So,
Love it.
So he was so specific that I know that when the strongholds are broken and uprooted in this area, now we've had pockets of revival around the country there, but once the ones are broken in this place, I know revival is going to break out all over. It's going to join together.
Wow. Do you find, I know in places I've been in Africa, even the Christian churches are real hesitant to let go of witchcraft because it's been a part of their life, their whole life. And a lot of times it's the grandma in the family that, practices. And so they almost feel like it's a betrayal of their people. It's a betrayal of their culture.
You're so
to
right.
walk away from witchcraft. So, wow.
Yeah.
What do you guys do about that?
Well,
I mean, what do you do? How do you teach on that?
Well, I've held conferences where we're with the moms, the grandmas, the women, trying to actually deal with some of those generational things. What was interesting last year is we brought it was on Mother's Day. We brought a large group of women in and grandmothers, and I had to teach them what renouncing was. That it was foreign to them.
Wow.
And so I think it took almost an hour to just break through to their minds what renouncing is. There was such a demonic block. And I'm telling you, we finally broke through, and one person came forward, and I was shocked. And they were renouncing out loud. And she said, I renounce wanting to murder my child.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, well, that's a start. That's a good start.
Now wait.
Love 'em.
Okay, now we just hit something really fun to talk about. We've got to take a break, but we're going to be right back. Y'all hang with us. We're going to hear the end of this story when we come back.
Many people know about our clinic, but most don't realize we help patients around the globe reach their health goals. Deep down, you know there's got to be a way to get there, but you don't know where to start. Our starter plan is the first step. You'll get everything you need to experience a health transformation in 120 days.
You'll start by resetting your health with a 2-week detox. Then you'll implement our proven anti-inflammatory food plan. On top of this, you'll get a 120-day supply of essential supplements, omega-3 and vitamin DK, as well as our homeopathic drops to accelerate your health goals.
Go to Sherwood.tv now and use the promo code on your screen to receive this exclusive offer and save a total of $80.
This is your path to more energy and better health.
Well, we are back, and I have just been waiting to find out what happened with the mama who renounced wanting to kill her child. So pick it up and take it away, Amy. What happened?
Yes. So she came forward and she said, I want to renounce this. And, I'm in a little bit of shock because I did not, it's already taken an hour. And I'm getting frustrated in my flesh and I'm going, dear Jesus, I am just about done here. And so finally the breakthrough came. She says this. And I said, well, then let's renounce this. So she walked through the quick steps of renouncing, repenting. And I'm telling you, once she did, bam, she hits the floor. And because
Wow, really?
that demon just left her like that. That's what renouncing and repenting does. So
Oh,
then
wow.
other ladies, I'm talking grandma's 98 years old coming up and repenting for going to diviners and cursing their children because they finally understood the power of renouncing.
That is, oh my gosh.
It was glorious.
Wow.
Yeah.
We take a lot of things for granted. I've even spoken to refugees from South Sudan who'd never really been taught about forgiveness, forgiving the people that tortured them, forgiving the people that uprooted them and made them become refugees. And it's powerful when they get a hold of these principles. I mean, it's life-changing.
It is.
I found that when we were in Brazil doing healings, and we were standing with this young gal.
Your husband, Neil.
Yeah, Neil, my husband. And we were standing with this gal, and we couldn't get the breakthrough. She had a physical ailment, and she could not get the breakthrough. And so Neil finally stopped and said, there's got to be something spiritual behind this. So she says, is there anybody in your family line? Is there anything, again, that needs to be repented of, or something that's happened to you, or a curse against you? No. He prays again. Then he just asked her one more time. She goes, well, my sister-in-law doesn't like me very much, and she did create a voodoo doll and, stuck it under our bed. And Neil was like, boom, boom. And all of a sudden, she repented of that, or, what I'm saying, and renouncing that, forgiving the sister-in-law, and boom, there was the healing. Yeah. So there is such power in what you're saying about renunciation and understanding in many other cultures that don't understand that power. What's interesting to me is you sit here and you go, each of us, even in our countries, there's a DNA that's carried for each of us to glean from. That here we have a power of understanding repentance or renouncing, but we're so shallow in many things and spiritual.
Do we? Huh? How many churches in America talk about repentance? How many?
I know.
Not many talk about renouncing. No,
not right now.
People aren't taught that, and we're not taught the power in these things. We're just, and the grip that can be on. People can suffer all their life, and if you don't know the truth, you stay locked up in that. It almost doesn't seem fair, but I don't know. Long time ago, the church, I think, got away from a lot of things that needed to be taught, and we just haven't got back there.
Yeah. I'm just thankful for the Holy Spirit, because if he hadn't have taught me these things, I would not even understand the power of renouncing as well. And, even there was a dream encounter that the Lord had taken me in where my dad, he had a traumatic brain injury. And people were telling me at the time, you just need to let him go. You just need to let him go. Let him die. He was struggling. Things were not okay. And I became weaker inside and thinking, well, maybe I am the one holding him here. Maybe I do need to let him go. And I began, just in my mind, guys, I began to come in covenant with that thought. And I know many of us do. I'm not addressing anyone else. I'm just talking my situation. And in this situation, I began to just weaken my strong stance. I'm the one who would fight for him, speak words of life. Well, what happened is I go to bed that night. And because of what I came in covenant with in my mind, the Lord showed me my dad dying. And he said, the Lord said to me, and it was in a very strong, corrective, but loving way. And he said, I never asked you to come in covenant with death. I have only asked you to speak life.
Woo.
So I woke up and I'm like, I renounce what I accepted. I repent for coming in agreement with this. And I went to bed the next night. I saw my dad alive, just, Amy, I'm here. And all of a sudden, the Lord said, only speak life. That was it. So I woke up and I knew the importance in renouncing, the importance in what we come in covenant with in our mind. And that's just one example of many. But I took that to the nations because it's what we need to do. Even in Pakistan, it's a very, when I go there, the culture, they're very shy. They're very reserved, the women especially. They're not allowed to speak much, and that's part of the culture. And I had women and men together, and I taught them the power of renouncing in this church. And the women and men renounce in front of each other, even things against their spouses. And again, the power of God hit them. They drop to the ground and they're receiving freedom, one after the other after the other.
It's awesome.
It is just amazing. It's amazing.
Well, now wait, what happened with your dad?
My dad is still alive right now.
Woo! There we go.
I still speak life into him, and he did not go into hospice. I did not come in agreement with that.
How long ago was this?
Oh, gosh. This was probably 2015.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You see, with his brain injury, he lost part of his brain. So when he was having surgery, the doctor opens him up. The speech center part of the brain literally falls into the doctor's lap. It was totally necrotic and not good. Falls into the doctor's lap. The doctor comes out, and his words exactly were, barring a miracle, your father will never speak again. And I heard, barring a miracle. So for 30 days, I spoke to his brain. You will work fully, you will speak. Within 30 days, he was speaking full sentences. So,
Love it.
And that's not the brain rewiring itself. That is a miracle.
That just flat out miracle. I think about when you're saying that it is so true. And we are in even this decade of pay, the Hebrew decade of the pay.
What, pain
P-E-Y.
or pay?
Pay, P-E-Y. And in that, it's all about the mouth. It's what are you speaking? And, we can go right back to Genesis 1 and how was the world created? It was created by the mouth. And if you and I are kings or queens, the King of Kings, and he's a Lord of Lords. If we are kings and we are lords, it has to do with what we speak. And that's what you're saying here. And, I'm seeing this over and over that we're having to move in a place of the miraculous, of understanding that all miracles come from the kingdom of heaven, not from the kingdom on earth. Mm-hmm. And when what they do is they manifest on earth. And so it is very important in this season, especially the way the world is in the chaos that we're in. I think part of what I love about Amy is that she's like, she said to me, hey, we're going in when the darkness is at its height. We're not going in when it's the light time. We're going in in the flood time. Like, here we are, we're going to cross the Jordan in the flood. We're going to go when the height of darkness thinks it has its power, and we're going to go in there. And I'm hearing this. We're going to speak forth life, and life is going to shift lives. Because we've got to move into this. Jesus came displaying the kingdom. This is what the first century church did. This is what they walked in. To say that they didn't have the fear or didn't understand always what they were doing, just like Amy's dream, which is incredible, going, okay, Amy, is this what you want? Then you get a dead dad. Or do you want this? Do you want one that's full of life? I'm going to train you in walking by my kingdom and in my kingdom. And this is so needed right now because this is what brings revival. This is what brings awakening. And once we are awakened, all seven mountains can come into reformation and transformation because they do feed off of us as the church shifting and eating from life instead of death. And so I think that's where we are right now. The church as a whole in the world is shifting from eating that brings no life to that is the life of the kingdom. So, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Wow. Well, do you think the church in America, which is what we know best, do you think it's becoming more open to things in the past that would have been no part of hearing about it?
What do you mean by the past? You mean like it's the supernatural or
Well,
that type of things?
supernatural things, or what we're talking about. A lot of the topics we've been talking about.
Yeah, okay.
In the past, people would have said, what? Or, stay away from those crazy people.
Yeah.
I think there's more of an openness.
Yeah, I would say, and then I'll let Amy, but yes, I have, as a forerunner, when you step out of the religious structure and you've moved into the place of the Spirit and learning the Spirit, you are crazy. But I say now that, yes, I do see the church awakening in America, but we're not awake. I mean, there is a remnant that is, and it only takes a remnant. It does. God's always used a small amount. But I do believe there is many, many more that are waking up to the supernatural realm, to the reality that Jesus came to deliver a kingdom that is not of this world. And in America, we have never been in need of the God of miracles. We had insurance, we've had wealth. I mean, I'm not trying to say the poorest in our nation. I mean, I lived on an island in Belize, got my water out of a well and took a bath with a bucket. Okay. I mean, I don't think, and we went to the bathroom underneath the house with a hole. So I'm just saying, I've been primitive, and people in America are more wealthy. If you have nothing, you're more wealthy than much of the world. But what I'm here, this is what, while ago this hit me, then I'll be quiet, was Sondra said something in the opening about the Spirit and of Isaiah 58. And the truth is, these people that we think are poor and hungry and naked are actually the ones spiritually that are rich. And so God's going to take America and some of the things that we think are so, we got this, and he goes, I'm going to teach you through these that are humble and pure of heart. When they step into it, they have something, a meekness about them that you could learn from. So that's kind of my take on it.
Our strength is our weakness.
Yep.
Our strength is our weakness.
Yeah. Can be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we are self-sufficient and have a lot, and wait, you got to hear this. I just got back from Africa. I spent nearly a month in Africa, and I just got back like 10 days, 2 weeks ago, whatever. And you know what someone in Africa said to me? They were surprised to find out that white people love Jesus too. And I said, what?
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
What do you mean? Especially the white Americans. They said, because white Americans have everything. We just can't imagine that you think you need God. Oh, that was a sad moment.
It is.
But then these villagers, I was in this village. I mean, they don't have anything. We're in this village, but for the children, like the little ones, to go to school, there's something like 8-10 miles each way.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard for them to get an education. A lot of them can't. So these people who are Christians and love Jesus, they were starting little community schools. And people that had the opportunity to go to school as children were teaching these children. And I said, I must go to one of these schools. And of course, it's just, a little kind of covered shack kind of thing. But I went, and you know how they started the school? I'm going to put the video in here. But it's these little kids saying the Lord's Prayer in English.
Lead us, not temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
These little 5-year-old kids. I'm telling you, I stood there weeping because I thought, Lord, what would it take for me to see this in America?
Yeah. That's great. And
But
I
that's
think
the stereotype about white
is.
Americans.
And I think that's part of why I really feel this about what Amy's doing with the next generation. And, if you could at some point put up ways that, they could contribute to her and what's happening with this tent revival, because it takes money. Just like, Sondra, you turned around and sponsored a school, up where you were there. You gave what needed so these kids didn't have to walk as far, 10 miles, and hoping that they can only walk 3 to get the education. I think we don't, we as Americans, it's time for us to start sowing into these places. And we are a generous nation. Yeah. That is one of the things that you can't take away from America, is that we are a generous nation, and we have given, and that is part of God's heart. So I just think that this could also be something that can help, because if we know just like here in America, the next generation is here, and our mess is so confused as to who they are. And at least in these, what it sounds like you're saying, both of y'all, and I haven't been to Africa yet, but both of y'all are saying that they're rooted in the Word in a way that we aren't here. We have lost the depth, which is causing the greatness of confusion, so.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing. The people that went to visit in Africa, they said, usually, historically, whenever they would be teaching people or talking, people from Africa all over were always saying, I want to go to America. I want to go to America. I want to go to America, because that's where everybody thinks the land of opportunity is. But America's reputation is just all that's going on, like with the transgender and the everything that's going on. Yeah. Now, you know what they say? Oh, man, there's no way I want to go to America. Forget about it. America's not the place to go anymore. And, that was kind of sad to hear, too. That Matt Walsh, did that documentary, What is a Woman, from Daily Wire. Yes. And he was going around, you see it, he went around asking all these people, what is a woman? What is a woman? And nobody would give him the answer of what is a woman, because they were given all that woke, liberal stuff, because he was furious of what they were doing to our children. I'm telling you, there was a part in the documentary where he got on a plane and headed to Africa, and I hit the floor laughing, because I knew I was doing that. We consider, Africa third world, but he went over there to get some common sense, and he went to a village to the chief, and he told them what was going on, and these people went, man, you all are nuts. No way we want to go to America. You are nuts.
Yeah. We have lost some respect, definitely.
Oh, a lot.
I've had a lot of Kenyans ask me, I'm coming into this nation saying, here is Christ, here, let's be Christ-like, let's learn this, and let's shift the culture. And basically, I'm coming in saying, this is not right with the culture. I'm summarizing it right now. And their questions have been, what about your culture there? And so I've had to tell them, listen, our culture, every country is going to have something. And the culture that you're seeing is not good there either. And it has to shift, because it's actually extremely disgusting to them. You're right. Here they are. They're starting with prayer. They're worshiping in their schools. They're allowed to converse and have Christian unions in their school. I'm even allowed to go in and speak about God in the school.
And you can proselytize. Yes. And if Christians want to go in and do something in the school, they don't care if you went in and quit talking about Jesus with it.
No problem. So there's a foundation that is still there, which means I believe, now I don't know what anybody else thinks. I believe they're a little closer to revival in some ways than what we are in our as a culture as a whole. And so it is disgusting. And so a lot of them have said, I don't want to go there. Thankfully, ones that still want to come here are gaining an understanding that, okay, every country, every nation is going to have something. We all have to have kingdom culture. But many of them have idolized America, and now we have lost respect going into their country, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And a lot of this crazy stuff that's going on seems to be going on in first world countries all over the globe.
Yeah. It is true.
Yeah, and the places that are holding their ground besides Africa is Russia.
Totally
Putin
agree.
gave a speech not long ago of what's happened to these crazy Americans.
Yeah.
And you couldn't disagree with what he said.
You couldn't. You could not. One of the things he said is, you're going to say that God's a woman, and then you're going to be mutilating your children? That's what I'm telling you. The African nations are about to come up on the scene. They're already here. But they're about to show us how to bring people into salvation. I mean, I even think we've lost that in America. We really don't know how to go after that. So it's exciting.
I
Exciting
think
days.
God is going to, as time goes on, God is going to use Africa in huge ways. Like, for example, when you look at the arable land left on the globe, like where to grow food, it's a certain points on the equator. And if you draw those lines all the way around the globe of where you can really grow food, the only place left with land is Africa. It's like 80% of it is in Africa.
Wow.
I'm involved with an organization, Foundations for Farming, that's going all over Africa and other places, teaching them how to grow food successfully. And when you talk about global warming and what's really ruining the globe, it's soil erosion. Plowing up the field, and it's burning trees, and it's that sort of thing. That is what's killing the world, and we're going to have to learn how to do something different.
Well, Sondra,
we're all having to shift our mind.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about global warming, I always thought it was just a leftist idea, but the more I learn, there are serious concerns, and farming practices are one of them. So, we have just a minute left. Who wants the last word on that? Darla, you get 30 seconds, and then Amy, you get 30
perfect.
seconds.
What I love is, and I know, Amy, I feel like you and Sondra are going to get together after this, was part of why I wanted to bring you together, was because what Sondra is starting to do is to take farming into the schools for the children to learn. And then her son, I loved it. Josh said, oh my goodness, can you imagine in 10 years, here you are teaching the youth how to farm. You bring that into Kenya, teaching those youth how to farm, and in 10 years, they're teaching their children. So you get this culture that shifts the way that they see them. So I really do think there's a connection with you guys moving forth in this, bringing forth the farming. So go, Amy.
Amy, what's your website? What's your website?
We have www.chosenforlife.com. And you can also go to www.amyelizabethtaylor.com. Awesome.
Well, ladies, thanks so much for joining me today. Good luck, and I can't wait. You'll have to come back and tell us what happened when you are in Kenya. So everybody